Hello, I'm Mark Morton. This is number 0862 of the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0862. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet Rob Curnock, who back in the day ran as a congressional candidate in Texas. He shares his story in the book, Dead Man Running.
I went up to Washington and met with the NRCC, which is the National Republican Congressional Committee, and I said, look, I understand you guys don't think I have a chance. You're not going to help me. I get that. Could you please stop hurting me? Because what was happening was people would call in and they'd say, hey, we're thinking about giving money to the Curnock for Congress campaign. How do we do it? Where do we do this? Whatever. And they were literally being told by the National Party, don't waste your money. He can't win. Your money would go better elsewhere. So we couldn't raise any money. We were being outspent 300 to 1.
Nzondi is back on the show with a new novel called Death Con. It's about a different kind of convention with a lot of cosplay and costumes on a cruise ship.
I came up with an idea for Death Con, which is a con on a cruise ship. And in this world, necromancy is just as normal as the common cold. I have a group of teenagers who have a little company that raises the dead. Sometimes they raise the dead for police investigations to get to the truth, and sometimes just for families when it's a quick death, an unexpected death, to say their last goodbyes.
Katie Law is the author of the thriller novel Call Me Lawless, the first book in a trilogy. Katie took an interesting pivot from accusations to authorship.
In the back of my head, and it was always a passing thought, I knew I always wanted to write a book. And my now husband, we were dating, and of course I was accusing him of cheating. And he said, please do something with that imagination of yours. Why don't you write a book? And I hung up with him. I picked up my iPad and I just started writing.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, Dad Joke Theater, Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, Morning Shower Thoughts, and of course, an Idiot of the Day. The guest later, the person who told you this was show number 0862, was Mark Morton, author of The Headmasters. We had him on the program on show number 0856, which you can go back and listen to, talking about his debut science fiction novel. Thank you very much, Mark, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. In the UK, Ian Clotton recently received a 7-year prison sentence for rigging his South Yorkshire home with booby traps to protect his cannabis operation. A couple of years ago, the 60-year-old used tripwires, homemade pipe bombs, and a flamethrower, telling people he was inspired by the Christmas film Home Alone.
I'm up here, you morons! Come and get me!
Around 100 homes in Grimethorpe were evacuated in May of 2024 during a police search. Officers discovered cannabis plants, amphetamines, $36,000 sewn into a sofa, and various weapons, including air guns and a crossbow. Prosecutor Helen Chapman told jurors recently, if you are sitting there thinking that this sounds a little like the film Home Alone, then you would be correct.
You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
His ex-wife, Leslie Clotton, received a 21-month suspended sentence for her involvement in ordering imitation firearms and drug-related offenses.
The little jerk is armed!
Well, I guess Ian and his ex-wife have found out that this is not child's play. Colossal Biosciences announced its 3 de-extinct dire wolves have reached full maturity and are successfully hunting as a pack. The bioengineering company revealed footage at its Dallas headquarters showing wolves Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi moving together through snow and sharing meals. Chief Animal Officer Matt James said the wolves initially struggled with kills, bringing back a very live bunny, but have since really mastered bunnies. Okay, and now pursue larger prey like deer. The trio lives full-time together on a 2,000-acre managed site with a 10-person care team. Recent comprehensive annual exams, including CT scans and MRIs, showed all animals are really happy and healthy. The wolves now follow natural fast and gorge feeding patterns, sometimes going days without food before consuming large portions. CEO Ben Lamb confirmed plans for more dire wolf pups. Oh my God! Has nobody seen Jurassic Park? And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, Brad Reese, grandson of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups creator H.B. Reese, criticized Hershey Company in a February 14th letter. Wow, Valentine's Day. He's not going to get any Hershey's Kisses. Anyway, he wrote the letter to Hershey for replacing quality ingredients with cheaper alternatives in many Reese's products.
We're making a big change to Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
He accused the company of substituting milk chocolate with compound coatings and peanut butter with peanut cream in multiple items. Reese questioned how Hershey positions Reese's as its flagship brand while quietly replacing the very ingredients that built Reese's trust. He recently discarded Reese's Mini Hearts, calling them not edible.
Unlike some hearts, Reese's don't taste like desperation. Happy Valentine's Day.
Hershey's acknowledged recipe changes 4 days later on February 18th, stating adjustments allow new shapes and innovations while protecting Reese's essence. The company maintains original peanut butter cups, use unchanged milk chocolate, and peanut butter recipes.
Yeah!
Wait, are you still selling the regular cups?
Yep.
Yeah!
H.B. Reese invented the cups in 1928. His sons sold the company to Hershey in 1963. So I guess grandson Brad was once again left off company emails.
I'm tired of being left off company email. Can someone tell me how we do it? Not sorry. Reese's.
And let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program. Even before all the current political turmoil, backbiting, and character assassination that is swirling in most countries, one would often ask, why would anyone run for office? Well, Rob Curnock ran for office. He's a former TV political reporter, party leader, and unlikely congressional candidate. He's also the author of the book Dead Man Running. Rob joins us from Waco, Texas, via Riverside.com. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being on the program with us. So, when did you run for office? And why?
Well, the first time was in a primary. I ran in a primary for Congress in a Central Texas district. And it was one of those things where in my book I talk about how I agonized over it because I was an anchor on a TV station here. So I had some pretty good visibility and name recognition. And there came an open seat. And so I ended up considering running for that. I didn't do it. And some others jumped in and I continued working on at the TV station because I would have had to quit if I had run. So I ran in a couple of primaries. The second one was basically a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. And that's one of the things I talk about is that when you're running for office, don't run on promises. I had some people that had promised me some great funding if I would go in a second primary, and it turns out that the money wasn't there. In other words, they talked, but it never came through. And so it was like, what am I doing in the race here now when I have nothing to do? So that was the first two. They were kind of like, I would almost consider them trial runs because they were just in the primary. But then several years later, the same congressman who was considered unbeatable, he was just getting more strong by the cycle. I was sitting in a restaurant with a friend of mine, and we were talking about my upcoming wedding. I was marrying a girl in Buffalo, New York. And so we were talking about the wedding. It was my best man. And all of a sudden, a judge came walking by, and he said, "Hey, Rob, would you ever consider running for Congress again?" And I said, "No, not really. No, I'm about to get married, and, it's a big deal for both me and my wife. First marriage for both of us, big deal." And he said, "Well, we can't find anybody to challenge Chet Edwards." Chet Edwards was the name of the congressman. And I said, "Well, somebody will jump in. They always do." He goes, "No, he's pounded too many people, so it just is not something that's going to happen." I said, "Well, if nobody else will run, then I'll put my name on the ballot just so the voters on our side of the aisle have a choice." And he said, "Would you really?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but somebody will jump in. They always do." And so anyway, he said, "Can I pass your name along?" And I said, "Sure." Now, this was in '08, or actually '07, going up for the '08 race. And so he walked off and said, "Okay." And I turned to my best man, the guy that was going to be my best man, and I said, "What the heck just happened?" And he said, "You just agreed to run for Congress again." And I said, No, somebody will jump in. They always do." Anyway, so it just went from there, and I told them to keep my name out of it, because if anybody else jumped into the race, I was out. I wasn't interested. And so things just moved on, and I got married and then got back from the honeymoon, and yeah, they kind of held the place for me and kind of tried to keep, some people that were upset that nobody was challenging the Democrat congressman, but they were being told by party leaders, no, we've got a guy. We can't give you his name, but we've got a guy. And that guy was me. And it turns out nobody else did go in, so I went in and filed, and I was the candidate in '08.
So did you feel like a sacrificial lamb when you were going to slaughter, when you actually came back from your honeymoon and realized, yes, you're running?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, honestly, I was like, all right, I was just going to put my name on and give people a choice, because I knew this guy was, I'm telling you, he pounded every Republican candidate that had come before. Well-funded, Republicans that had big money, had the National Party behind them. He pounded them. So I was just like, okay, I'll put my name on the ballot. But once I started getting into it, it was like, oh, no, I don't know if I can do this. I'm a fighter. If I'm in this race, I got to try and do something. I'm not just going to be a placeholder. And then what happened in the race early on, Nancy Pelosi was on a Sunday morning talk show and was asked who should Barack Obama pick as his next vice president, or his vice presidential candidate. And Nancy Pelosi said he should pick Chet Edwards out of Texas. Well, that was my opponent. And everybody was going nuts down here. My people, they were discouraged as could be, because they were like, oh no, now he's got national stature, and he's going to be on the, speaking on the Democratic National Convention, and he's, and I was like, no, this is absolutely great for us, because we're generally a Republican district, and he'd been winning by winning some Republican votes every time. And so I said, Nancy Pelosi just outed him, because he goes up to Washington and votes with her 100% of the time. Then he comes back here to this district and acts like a big conservative. And so now those Republican voters that we needed to pull back from him, everybody was going to see that he's not who he's been portraying himself as. And so that's when I knew things had changed on the ground here. As you said earlier, talking with Chet, that's when he knew things had changed on the ground here too as well. And that comes into the story that just happened like a year ago.
Obviously, Edwards was not the vice presidential candidate. It turned out to be Joe Biden. So how did that change things, if anything, during the race that you guys were in?
What happened was it came down to Joe Biden and Chet Edwards and one other person, I guess, were thoroughly vetted for the position, but Chet Edwards didn't get it because at the time there was a senator named John Edwards who was having all kinds of personal issues. He was accused of, having an affair on his cancer bedridden wife. So they didn't want to confuse Chet Edwards with John Edwards, so he didn't get it. But what happened was, so you have to campaign in 11 counties. And I was going to all these small towns that had been Chet Edwards bastions for years. And I'd had county judges, sheriffs, county commissioners, elected officials on both sides of the aisle would come up to me at events and go, we've been with Chet for 12 years, 18 years, whatever. If he is Nancy Pelosi's pick to be Barack Obama's vice president, he's not who we thought he was. Now, we can't go out publicly for you because if you don't win, we're toast. And no one expected me to win. Nobody gave me any kind of prayer, hence the name of the book, Dead Man Running. And they said, we just can't go public, but our families know we're voting for you, and our close friends know we're voting for you. We can't give you any money, but you got our support. And I was hearing this everywhere I went, so I knew something was happening. And I went up to Washington and met with the NRCC, which is the National Republican Congressional Committee. And I said, look, I understand you guys don't think I have a chance. You're not going to help me. I get that. Could you please stop hurting me? Because what was happening was people would call in and they'd say, hey, we're thinking about giving money to the Curnock for Congress campaign. How do we do it? Where do we do this? Whatever. And they were literally being told by the National Party, don't waste your money. He can't win. Your money would go better elsewhere. So we couldn't raise any money. We were being outspent 300 to 1 per dollars. So that's what was going on the ground, but I couldn't get them to change their mind. And then when the results came in, it stunned everybody, including the National Party, and they made this a targeted race the next season. I was still in the race, and then they had kind of a hand-picked guy that they wanted in the race because he could finance his own primary run. And they had to knock me out because we knew whoever won that primary was going to win because I had hurt Chet Edwards so badly in the 2008 cycle. In fact, the only thing that saved him was Barack Obama being at the top of the ticket, because the black turnout in the Waco area and Bryan College Station, which is where Texas A&M is, the black turnout was double and triple the normal turnout because of Obama being at the top of the ticket. And that's what saved Edwards that cycle. But we knew the next cycle, he was done because I had nothing. And I almost pulled off the shocking upset. It was just like the Rocky movie. I mean, it was just an unexpected thing, and it stunned everybody. So
let's flash forward to your book. We had a chance to talk a little bit the other day about your experience, and I just want to tell the story of your book and the fact that you got an interesting intro to your book.
Yes, it's unbelievable, actually. So the book's been out. It came out about 5 years ago. So it had been out for a while. About a year ago, I own a business in the Waco area, and it's a video business. And I talk about in the book how Chet Edwards was a customer of mine, his family and him, until I ran for office against him. Well, fast forward to about a year ago, Chet Edwards came into the office and was getting some business done. I wasn't here. The manager was here, and he walked in, and we keep some books under the counter because I've got a couple of books out, but we keep some books under the counter because people like to buy them from me so that they can, have me autograph them and stuff like that. I prefer they go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, but whatever. So he sees the book under the counter, and he goes, "Did Rob write a book?" And the manager says, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, what's it about?" She said, "His race against you." He goes, "Oh, well, I guess I better buy one." So he bought the book. The next day, I come into the office, and there was a customer up front, and I come around the corner from the back, and they're standing there as Chet Edwards. He goes, "Rob, I bought your book." I said, "Now, I heard, but now you understand it's coming from my perspective, so you might not agree with everything that's in it." And he goes, "No, I want you to know you kept me up till 2 a.m. last night. I started looking through it. I couldn't put it down. Rob, it is so good." I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, does that mean you'll give me a good review?" He goes, "Absolutely." He goes, "I teach political science courses now, and one of the things I try to teach these kids is that politics doesn't have to be a blood sport." He goes, "You and I kept the race civil, and the book keeps it civil. I trash his politics, but I don't trash him." We ended up talking for over an hour, and I hadn't seen him since the end of the 2010 race. I hadn't seen him since the end of the book, but we had a great talk, just catching up, and he was asking me things about what had happened during the campaign. So anyway, he was saying, he would help me. He goes, "Rob, I don't care if you're in a room full of MAGA people at a book signing. If you want me there, I'll be there." And I said, "Well, Chet, finish the book first before you make that commitment." And he ended up buying 2 more books before he left to give his gifts. Anyway, he finished the book about several months later, like a month later. And we were talking some more about him doing it. And I said, well, Chet, if you like this book so much, we're about to re-release it. The publisher's having me add photos. We're editing some things. It's a new cover. I said, if you like it, why don't you write me a foreword? Ha, ha, ha. I was joking. About 3 weeks later, I get an email from him, and it's, Rob, if I was going to write a foreword for Dead Man Running, this is what I would write. He goes, I'm not a writer, so if you want to use it, great. If you don't, I totally understand. And, that won't hurt my feelings, but this is what I would write. I read through the thing, and it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was just incredible. We changed some grammar, some minor grammar things. Now, when you get the newly released version, which came out about 5 months ago, the first thing you see in there is the foreword by Chet Edwards. The whole book is about getting him out of office, and yet the first thing you see is a foreword by him talking about me and him and the importance of the book. So I added a photo of him and me talking during the campaign before a parade in some small town in our district. And so that's the first thing you see, though. But it's just stunning. Again, the whole book is about getting him out of office. And yet the first thing you read when you open the book is his foreword. It's just great. And a lot of people it's created a lot of new attention and media buzz and all that. So it's been fun. But, he's a good guy. And they're talking about doing an dramatic audio series with actors playing the part. Well, the head of the media company that was doing this asked me, hey, could you possibly get Chet to record his foreword? Because we think it'd be a great addition if we do this 6 to 8 part series. So I talked with him, and last week, Chet Edwards came in and recorded his foreword that they're going to use in this audio series. So, and then we had another good talk for about an hour and a half, because he's a decent man. We just disagree on politics. That's where it goes.
What do you think of this current situation of politics today?
It's really difficult, and Chet and I have discussed this. I'm conservative. He's a liberal. The two parties in America, I can't speak for Canada, although I did live in Buffalo, New York for a while, so I was in and out of Canada all the time. But the two parties have gone so far apart, and it's just on things that you wouldn't think there should be any disagreement on. And of course, they're on that side of the aisle, they're saying, well, how can you think this way? How could you possibly think this way? And then on the other side of the aisle, they're saying, how can you think this way? How can you possibly think this way? And one of the examples I like to give is we're having discussions in our country now, in America now, about what's the definition of a woman? I mean, a man can have a baby. These are things that you're going on one side of the aisle, saying, of course, this is worth discussing. And the other aisle, you're going, this is not normal. And so that's the problem. We can't even agree on what should be the basics. And then you start bringing emotion into it. My feeling has always been, as a Christian, I'm not going to get in anybody's face. I'm not going to be rude to anyone. But I'm going to stand on my values, and I'm going to stand on my principles. And the problem is, in America, we've just gotten so far apart because we just can't even agree on some what should be basic premises. So that's the problem. And I don't know what the answer is, unless we can just, one side or the other has to be victorious. I guess it's like any cultural battle. And some things, you can have an easy truce. You can find common ground. You can find ways where you can reach across the aisle. But then there's other things where it's just like, wow, I don't know what the, I liken it to the Israeli-Palestinian argument years ago, because I was in Israel for a visit. And I came back, and I honestly was discouraged for them, because it was like, well, where do they go to solve this problem? Because you got one side that says, our starting point in any negotiation is that we want you dead and your nation gone. So where do you go from there? I mean, and that's where we have to find a way to get past that, or I just don't know, how we succeed if we don't get to a point where you can't find some common ground or some kind of agreement on things. All I can say, I can show you that what Chet and I have done, but I would consider him to be, he's probably considered a moderate by today's standards. So I don't even know where he fits into his party these days. It's a thorny issue, and I'll tell you, politics is a tough, rough battle. That's what the book shows. I mean, the things I went through were brutal. They really were brutal. But at the same time, I also talked about the good things. You meet incredible people, and people will put such faith in you if they believe in your message. And that's what we were able to do. We were able to get people to come on board and believe in our message, which is why I made such a good showing and stunned everybody. And as a result, what happened was I became, this seat fell into it became a Republican seat for the first time ever. That's what Chet talked about in his foreword as well. He mentioned that as well. And it was because of what I had gone through to get us to that point.
Well, the book is called Dead Man Running. It's written by Rob Curnock. And Rob, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Well, Peter, I really appreciate you inviting me on. I really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you, and I wish and hope for nothing but success in your endeavors here.
Rob Curnock, author of the book Dead Man Running. You can go to our website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0862, and you'll find the link to Rob's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
I asked the librarian if the library had books on paranoia. She whispered, "They're right behind you."
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestufffileprogram.
I'm standing here and I'm smiling. For Canada. Hi, I'm Ian Thomas, and yes, I really am smiling because there is nowhere that makes me happier than Canada. We're the envy of the world, and we need to protect this precious place. We can buy Canadian products to save Canadian jobs and support Canadian businesses. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. This broadcast is coming to you from upstairs. Get out of the house.
And still to come on the program, we will talk to the author of Death Con, plus also the author of Call Me Lawless. We also have a morning shower thought coming your way, Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, and of course much more in Stuff File News right here, right now. In the UK, a custom-made titanium prosthetic leg lost by swimmer Brenda Ogden has been recovered after washing up on a beach 10 months later. The 69-year-old lost her $2,700 limb. Boy, that must cost an arm and a leg. When a wave knocked her over at Bridlington Beach in April. Ogden said, "I really couldn't believe I lost it. One minute we were standing up, smiling, and the next minute it was disappearing off." Her swimming group searched unsuccessfully as the tide swept it away. Elizabeth Forbes discovered the leg while fossil hunting on Atwick Shore, about 14.5 miles from where it disappeared. Said Forbes, "I took a photo of it because it was the most bizarre thing I had ever found." After posting photos on social media, people identified the owner. The leg has been retrieved and is returning to Ogden, who noted of the picture that it still managed to have its sock on the foot. Well, I guess that proves Burgess Meredith from Rocky got it all wrong.
Women weaken legs.
Yeah, but I really like this girl, you know?
But let her train you!
Okay, no more fooling around.
Okay, I hit it.
Women weaken legs, huh?
And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina faced an unexpected shortage when 10,000 free condoms distributed to athletes were completely depleted within 72 hours. Some competitors reported the supply had vanished before they even arrived at the Olympic Village. Said one athlete, "The supplies ran out in just 3 days. They promised us more will arrive, but who knows when." Event organizers confirmed additional shipments were being arranged but haven't provided a timeline. The shortage contrasts sharply with the 2024 Paris Olympics, where 300,000 condoms were available to athletes. Italian publication La Stampa notes organizers were not particularly generous with the numbers compared to previous games. Free condom distribution has been standard Olympic policy since the 1988 Seoul Olympics to promote safe sex awareness. Well, this brings new meaning to the official Olympic motto of faster, higher, stronger, together. And now, this.
The Stuff File presents Sir Dudley Piddly Havisham Sedgwick Smythe's Poetry Corner.
A mouse in her room woke Miss Dowd. She was frightened. It must be allowed. Soon a happy thought hit her. To scare off the critter, she sat up in bed and meowed.
And let's get to our next guest. Actor, musician, and Bram Stoker award-winning author Nzondi is back on the show. He has a new book out called DeathCon. It's a new twist on surviving the apocalypse. Nzondi joins us from Los Angeles via Riverside.com. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Good to hear from you.
Great to hear from you again as well. We talked about your previously about a book called Owari Mosaic. How did that end up doing in the long run?
Well, it won the Bram Stoker, so I'm very excited about that and happy about that. And it is now in development for a TV series, so it has some legs and it's still running. So yeah, good stuff.
Was that something that you had anticipated beforehand, and that is writing it for television?
Not at all. Not to sound like I frown my nose down at it, but I have no interest at all in trying to translate my book when I'm writing my books. I just want to write very good books, great stories that people can relate to and kind of just dig in and just turn the pages. When I write, I don't really think about translating it into, TV or any other medium. But it was fortunate, and I'm very happy that this book, had some legs and is trying to run with that.
Well, it's interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, you are an actor and a musician and a Bram Stoker award-winning author. So I'm just wondering, when you are writing, doesn't the theatrics of your profession as an actor involve or weave its way through what you are writing?
So, as a creative, a lot of my friends, I'm 59, I grew up watching the Rat Pack. And all of those cats sung, danced, acted, some maybe later directed. They had these different creative talents. And a lot of my friends who are writers, they also have different talents. And I think, it's kind of like a funny thing. Life makes you kind of try to do all of those things. If you started young, you're great. You have time to master it. But if you start at the age that I started, it's tough to master, make a living, and pay bills. So I recently had an epiphany that writing is all I want to do. If it spills over into some of the other mediums, I'm cool with that, but I'm still focused on just writing. So I gave up wanting to be an actor years ago. I love creating and singing and writing songs. I love it, but it's more of a hobby, even though my last video, which was a really cool video, Eaton Canyon Falls, my edited version, just hit over 100,000 views on YouTube. It's still kind of like, I have friends, that's all they live for is music. I'll leave that to them. I live for, the story and writing horror, science fiction and horror.
Well, let's talk about your new book, Death Con. As I said, it's a new twist on surviving the apocalypse. So, what is that new twist, or can you delve into that without giving away the story?
Yeah, I can give you, yeah. Okay, so if we are literary types and we've been to conventions, then we've heard of the word con as it relates to a convention. Comic-Con, WonderCon, StokerCon. There are many, many cons, HorrorCon. Well, I came up with an idea for DeathCon, which is a con on a cruise ship. So in the story, everyone attends this convention, this horror convention. It's a lot of cosplay. They're all dressing up in iconic horror tropes and characters. And in this world, necromancy is just as normal as a common cold. And so I have a group of teenagers who have a little company that raises the dead. And sometimes they raise the dead for police investigations to get to the truth. Sometimes for CEOs or companies that need to find that Coca-Cola formula, so to speak, and it's hidden away, the guy dies before they find it, that kind of thing. And sometimes just for families when it's a quick death, an unexpected death, to say their last goodbyes. And in my story, she was hired. My character Cozy Coleman was hired to be the necrotainment for the ship, and so she is raising the dead. But something happens. It's very mysterious. It's on the second anniversary of her boyfriend's disappearance / what she thinks is his death. And she's kind of torn if she should do it. Her friends convince her to do it, and she does it. And all heck breaks loose. She dies, and she's resurrected with this power that she's trying to learn and struggle with. And she finds out the person that helps her is her long lost boyfriend who was actually undercover. So it's a lot of emotion, it's a lot of anger, and it's a lot of the undead. I mean, my work isn't really just about horror. It's emotional architecture built around young women navigating power, identity, and legacy.
You were very quick in the opening of this conversation to mention your age. Is this story something that kind of delves with your own mortality?
Oh, it's a good question. No, I mean it's I just write girls who are not waiting to be saved. I mean, I'm interested in I was a teacher, so I taught school for middle school mostly for 13 years, and I'm interested in teens, especially young women, because I was brought up by women mostly. There were hardly any men in my family, so I'm interested in young women discovering that their voice, their intellect, their vulnerability are all forms of power. So I love creating stories where these female heroines don't inherit strength, they uncover it. So it's more like finding out ways to do that. And then little subtle philosophical clues, philosophical tidbits that I have about life and, ancestors and that kind of thing and African culture. I always put little tiny tidbits of that into the stories as well. But it's not preachy. It's more like, little breadcrumbs or Easter eggs.
You mentioned that you like writing female protagonists,
Mhm.
and that you grew up mostly with women. I mean, I had 4 older sisters, so I know what that's all about. Right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what is it that you feel you can get into the female psyche as a character that you're writing?
Osmosis. I didn't intend on ever it being that way. But just growing up, my grandmother took me in when I was 4. She was 70. And that voice stays with me. She lived till she was 102. And hearing her, baby, come on over here. Ace, come here. Just hearing that voice, that voice is always in my type of writing. And it comes natural. It's not forced. It's just something that just comes out in my writing. And then I just manipulate those different types of characteristics into or formulate or I craft them into the different types of characters that I develop.
In the beginning of this conversation, we talked about the fact that your previous book is now going into a phase where it's being written for the screen, and you weren't necessarily rah-rah about that, but
Yeah.
I gotta ask, DeathCon sounds like it's perfect for the screen.
Yeah. So, funny story about that, Peter. This book first came out as Lipstick Asylum a couple of years ago, and the publisher, they folded. And so a new publisher wanted to buy the book. And in that process, I had learned so much about titles and high concept and characterization and just different things that I learned. I went back and rewrote a lot of the book, and I was trying to look for a title for it. And I had a few titles in mind, and we're on the way. My girlfriend and I are on the way to church one early morning. She says, "Tell me about the book." And before I could finish telling her, she said, "DeathCon." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's it. That's the title." Because she knows I've been to all the different cons and that kind of thing. So she actually came up with the title, and I loved it, and it fit right. It fit with everything that my book is about. Yeah, of course, I'm sure you would love if someone offered you a deal to be in a movie with Denzel, you get an acting coach, you would love that and you would take it. But it's not like you go to auditions, every day. I don't know, maybe you do. It's that kind of thing. When someone presented it to me, I'm like, this could actually work. A Hollywood production company or producer really enjoyed it, and we've been developing it for quite some time now. And now it has some legs, and like I said, and it's ready to kind of get into this Hollywood world and see what happens.
By the way, I have been through the audition process and I hated it.
It's not for you, right?
No, it's just not for me.
But if you get a call, hey, Peter, we want you to be in this movie with Denzel playing his nemesis. Maybe not his nemesis, but playing his partner. Yeah, I'm sure you jump at it.
Now, you mentioned that DEFCON had another title. What was that other title?
Lipstick Asylum. I posted something last night on my social pages, and it was really more like just telling everyone thank you for this journey because it's gone through many titles. The first title it had was about this Hawaiian girl named Silva. It was the Confessions of Silva Slasher. This book just keeps going on. It just keeps moving, and then Omnium Gatherum bought the book, and it became Lipstick Asylum. Because there is I deal with a lot of psychological horror, and then that company folded. So most books, after a company gets rid of it or loses its faith in it or it folds, that's it. This book just keeps on going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. And now it has new legs, new growth, new ideas. I turned it from a Hawaiian girl to a girl from Brooklyn, African-American girl with a lot of tension in her, a lot of tea, a lot of attitude, and it's different. And so, it was the Confessions of Silver Slasher was the original iteration. Then it became Lipstick Asylum, and now it's DeathCon.
Well, congratulations on DEFCON. It's now out. And thank you very, very much, Nzondi, for taking the time to be on the program with us once again.
Thank you, Peter. And you can always go to nzondiauthor.com for any updates and news about my books.
Author, musician, and actor Nzondi. His book is called DEathCon. You can go to our website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0862, and you'll find links to Nzondi's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
If a jogger runs at the speed of sound, can they still hear their playlist?
Morning Shower Thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Here's a brief word about our show and my book. If you become a regular Patreon patron of the Stuff File program, I'll give you an e-version of my book, Great Conversations, My Interviews with Two Men on the Moon and a Galaxy of Stars. It's easy to do. Just go to patreon.com and become a patron to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. So, join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, My Interviews with Two Men on the Moon and a Galaxy of Stars. Sign up at patreon.com/The Stuff File program.
Choosy mothers choose the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. If your mother didn't choose it for you, well, I guess she just doesn't love you.
And we do have an Idiot of the Day coming your way a little later on. We don't have any more time for Stuff File news right here, right now. We're just going to get right to our last guest of this week's Stuff File program. Katie Law is the author of a new thriller novel, her first, entitled Call Me Lawless. It deals with Savannah Lincoln, who is a high-profile defense attorney in San Francisco. Katie joins us from Philadelphia via Riverside.com. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Thanks for being on the program with us.
Thank you for having me.
As I mentioned, it deals with Savannah Lincoln. Tell us what the story is about.
Well, it's based on Savannah Lincoln's life, her work life, and her family. She really loves her family, and she really loves her work. The first book is really based upon Savannah, home life, really, all about her.
So are you planning on doing a series of novels?
Yes, it's actually a trilogy.
Did you initially write it to be a trilogy, or was it just when you got to the end of the first book, you said, oh, I've got more stories in me?
I started the book in the middle. Right there and then, the ending of that chapter, I decided it was going to be a trilogy.
How did you come up with the story in the first place?
In the back of my head, and it was always a passing thought, I knew I always wanted to write a book. And my now husband, we were dating, and of course I was accusing him of cheating. And he said, please do something with that imagination of yours. Why don't you write a book? I hung up with him. I picked up my iPad and I just started writing.
Was it ever your idea in the past, before your husband had this aha moment, to write a book? Or was it always something you were interested in? Or did it just come to you later?
It came to me later. I always had an idea of, if I sit down and decide to write a book, it was going to be about this. So that idea was always there. And then after that aha moment, it was really easy for me to get into it.
So what is your background besides writing?
Well, I tried my hand at a lot of things. And in the end, I ended up being a LPN. So that was, I guess, really my passion, nursing.
So why a story about a lawyer, a high-profile defense attorney?
Well, to go back to really the beginning, and I don't want to give away the book here, but when I was 11 or 12, I was almost kidnapped by this serial rapist back in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I was born there. And so one day my dad told us, hey, I won't be picking up you guys today. You guys have to walk home. So that's my brother and my sister and myself. And walking home, this guy walked up to us and he said, hey, would you like to go and pick some cherries? So I said, no, I'm allergic to cherries. So he grabbed onto my hand and we were about to cross over. And who pulled up? My dad. So my dad intervened. And I always had that in the back of my head of someone like that being out there. So it's kind of a vigilante justice that I was thinking about, not to give away the book, but it's always an idea of writing something like that.
Now, I understand that also while you were a child, you grew up watching such shows as Perry Mason and Murder, She Wrote. So is that why your protagonist is a lawyer?
Yes. I love Jessica. And Perry Mason. I was in love with that man.
Now, which Perry Mason were you watching? Were you watching the old series with Raymond Burr?
The old series, yes.
And what is it that enamored you in watching those particular shows?
Well, back in the Caribbean, we had a few channels, maybe one or two. So whatever was on, We would just sit there and watch or go outside and play. And I would sit and watch.
And you never thought of becoming a lawyer yourself?
Not really, no. I like to think I'm one when I'm arguing with my husband.
So, since you're not a lawyer and you are writing these books, the first one being out right now called Call Me Lawless, and it's part of a trilogy, do you have to do a lot of research to get yourself up to speed to how the legal system works?
Yes, I did a lot of research, and I actually have two friends, so I really picked their brains a lot about the legal system and really just doing the research on my own. That was really cool.
Now, I understand that your book also touches on the historical great migration of African Americans from the rural South to urban areas in the North and the West, like San Francisco. Why did you decide to impart that wisdom into your book?
You know, that's a really good question. And to be honest with you, when I was writing about Savannah and her mother, I really wanted to go back there. You know, as a black woman, and you hear these stories, and I was thinking, why not, share one that is real but not real, right? You want to go back then and see how women were treated, and they were really nothing. It was all about the men going out and making a living. And I just thought that was important of just going back to see how black people struggled, how her parents struggled.
You mentioned that you grew up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I'm just wondering because I too am from immigrant parents. My parents came here from Barbados. So I've often wondered if, in your case, it's like so many people that I've known in the past, and that is you tend to see a particular country from an outsider's perspective, which gives you sometimes a greater appreciation for it because you're looking at it from outside.
That's true. I came to this country in the early 2000s, and now here we are 25 years later. So just looking back and where I came from, yeah, it's a big difference.
And in doing the research again for the book, but also in dealing with the African American migration, does it give you a greater sense of wonder and discovery in your new home? Actually, not too new home because you've been there for 25 years, but you know what I mean.
Yes. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. It's different in a way, especially when you have an accent, right? And the first thing, people hear that accent. Oh, where are you from, and what was it like? And they ask you all these questions, and sometimes you want to say, well, I'm not from a cave. It's not a cave world. So it's really different.
The first book is out. It's called Call Me Lawless. When are the other two in the trilogy planning to be released?
The second book, Call Me Lawless 2, TOO, is in the works. It's actually finished. So it's just a matter of time.
Is it just a trilogy, or now that you've written two books, could there possibly be more?
I don't know. I truly don't know. I was thinking maybe a spin off from the Call Me Lawless trilogy. I know I have something in there, but I'm not sure. Especially with two little toddlers. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it's 7-year-old, and it's really hard writing with them.
If someone were to read Call Me Lawless, would they recognize you in the protagonist?
No.
So you're nothing like Savannah?
Nothing like Savannah. No.
Are you sure?
Um oh, that's funny. Nothing like Savannah. No.
And has your husband read this book since he started by saying, use your imagination in another way? Has he read the book, and what does he think about it?
Well, he was there from the beginning, and some of the scenes I actually tried to play out on him. Well, I did play it out on him. He actually let me. There is one scene in the book, not to give it away, barbaric. There's a scene there that I really wanted just to visualize, and I asked him, and he was like, "Okay." And the trust, I love him so much. He was not afraid of all. One time he said to me, well, now I'm afraid to have arguments with you. So that was funny.
Well, congratulations on the first book. Looking forward to the second and third. The book is called Call Me Lawless. And thank you very, very much, KD, for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
KD Law, author of the thriller entitled Call Me Lawless. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0862, and you'll find the links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can find her book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. And boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
Kevin Luke, now 62, retired from the Army after 37 years, then worked for a defense contractor at Central Command on MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. A couple years ago, he met a woman online and decided to impress her with his job. He said in a text, "Sent to my boss earlier. Gives you a peek at what I do for a living." That peek was at his work computer, with the screen showing a classified email detailing dates, targets, and battle plans for a then-future U.S. military operation. Court records show Luke tried to impress the woman without considering the larger ramifications. Those came after they broke up, and the woman contacted authorities to share with them what Luke had shared with her. Said defense attorney Mark O'Brien, "This was, unfortunately, a tale as old as time. A man trying to impress a woman, the man ended the relationship, the woman later went to the government and told on him." Luke pleaded guilty to unauthorized communication of information relating to the national defense and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Now, why, oh why, would you send classified information about a future military operation just so you can impress a woman? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0862. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com. And once again, Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0862. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including kdxradio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WNRHLP-FM in Newport Richey, Florida, KZZHLP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
Sir Dudley here. You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. And that's our show. We're folding the fun and filing the frequencies. This is your friendly voice in the void, signing off. Until we meet again, keep your signal strong and your static suspicious, and may all your troubles be low bandwidth.